Today we're diving into the thick of it, how to actually tackle freelancing as a science experiment. But first, let me address the elephant in the room here. When a lot of people hear about freelancing, their brain immediately goes to the worst case scenarios, which is what if I fail? What if no one pays me? What if I can't replace my actual income? But here's what I want you to understand. Freelancing is actually one of the lowest risk ways to start making money online. Think about it. You're not investing thousands in inventory. You're not taking out business loans. You're not quitting your job on day one. You're simply testing whether people will pay you for skills that you already have or not. The worst thing that happens is that someone says no and you are exactly where you started. So we need to slowly create a new mindset here. Freelancing doesn't need to become your full-time career. It can just be something you build into a career if that's what you want, or maybe just way to make, maybe a way to make some extra money for vacation or to pay off debt faster. The beauty is that you get to decide how far you want to take it. And this is why I want you to think of this as a science experiment, not as a business launch. When you're gambling, you're hoping for a specific outcome and risking everything on that hope. But when you're experimenting, you're just collecting data. Every message you send, every person you talk to, every yes or no you get is just information. If someone says no, don't see it as rejection. That's data about your approach, your pricing, your target audience, whatever that is. If someone says yes, woohoo, that's also data about what works. And this shift in thinking changes everything because it makes failure almost impossible. In this case, you're not trying to win or lose, you're trying to learn what works and what doesn't. So let me tell you a story first of how I made my first dollar online, because I think it will show you how simple this can actually be. So I'm from Brazil, and like many Brazilians, I had been learning English for years. But here's the thing, it took me a very long time to get to fluency, and I was always seen as someone who had intermediate to lower level English. And at first, when I was still at the intermediate level, I thought that maybe I could teach my friends. But honestly, nobody was interested. They were like, Felipe, we'll just use an app or we'll, just go to the English school if we need to. But there was always an excuse. So I dropped that idea and I moved on with my life. But then, after I did some work in the United States and other English speaking countries, my English got significantly better, as you can hear right now. I reached actual fluency, and that's when I had a realization. I could use the same struggle that I had gone through, all of those years of frustration and those moments of feeling stuck, to help other people too, and turn that into my advantage. I had a story. I knew exactly what it felt like to be trapped by language barriers, to feel embarrassed by your accent, to struggle to express complex thoughts. And that personal experience became my greatest asset when I decided to start teaching. But instead of giving up, I started thinking, where are the people who actually need this? And that's when I realized that there are thousands of Brazilians living in the USA, Australia, Canada, all these English-speaking countries who are struggling with the exact same thing that I went through. These people weren't just learning English for fun. They needed it to get better jobs, to feel more confident in the country, to feel more confident at work, to help their kids with homework. It was a real problem with real consequences. So I had to figure out, how do I reach these people? This was before TikTok was big, before Instagram was huge for business as well. Facebook was really the main platform where people were hanging out in groups. So I started looking for Brazilian expat groups like Brazilians in New York or Brasileiros na Austrália. And I found dozens and dozens and dozens of them, each with thousands of members. And here's what I did. I wrote one message sharing my experience with English and how it had changed my life. And this was completely authentic. I talked about how learning English had opened doors for me because it's real, how it had given me more confidence because it's real, and how it had changed my opportunities. And I think it's very important to highlight here that I didn't have any degree, I didn't have any formal education whatsoever. I actually finished high school with a GED program, and I wasn't really the brightest student in my school, I had no teaching credentials, no certifications, no formal qualifications, nada. But here's the key. I did not ask for anyone's permission or validation. I didn't wait for someone to tell me I was qualified enough. I just went for it with the mindset of what's the worst that it can happen. The worst case scenario was that people would say no, and I'd be exactly where I started. But the best case scenario was that I could actually help people who were struggling. And I've gone through that struggle, so it was a match. So maybe I could also make some money in the meantime. Now, I need to be completely honest with you here. Sometimes in life we have an unfair advantage, and it's important to recognize them. By that time, my mom had been teaching English for over 20 years, so she helped me to put together my first classes and provided me with material so I could succeed with my first client. Since she was already doing this for a very long time, she already gave me a good idea on how to structure a lesson and what materials I could use. But here's the thing, I didn't have any idea how to get students, because the way she did was in a very different way, it was in the more traditional way. She'd been in the market for a very long time and had built her student base. I had no other way of doing it, which brings to an important question here. Do you have an unfair advantage? What are your unfair advantage? What puts you ahead of other people in some aspects? For example, if you're into fitness, maybe you're already fit, or you completed a marathon program. You're good at basketball and you're already in contact with a lot of people who like to get better at that stuff. Maybe you're a singer and you've been performing for a while and you know people who want to either learn how to sing or improve their voice. Maybe your unfair advantage is your network. You know a lot of small business owners, or you're connected to other parents, or you're part of a specific community. There's always something that we can identify as an unfair advantage. So here's what I want you to do right now. Grab a piece of paper and write it down, 3 to 5 things that you think there are your unfair advantages. Unfair advantages are anything that gives you a better positioning in certain markets and makes you stand out a little bit easier than the competition. This could be something like the skills you've developed through hobbies or work, networks you're part of, problems that you've personally solved for yourself or for friends, communities you belong to, resources you have. It doesn't matter what it is, just write them down. If you don't think you have any unfair advantages, that's completely fine. Maybe you just need to write down some things that you are interested in or reasonably good at, even if they don't feel like special to you. And even if at the end of this exercise you feel like you have no unfair advantage whatsoever, don't worry, that's completely normal. When I started my social media business, for example, I didn't have any unfair advantage in that space either. I had no formal training, no previous clients, no special connections. I just started anyway, and I learned as I went. The only thing I had going for me was that I spent way too much time on social media, probably more than I should have. I was obsessing about how people went viral, analyzing what made content work, studying different strategies. I just learned how to turn that time wasting habit into my advantage. So don't worry, your unfair advantage can exist, or maybe it doesn't exist yet, but it doesn't necessarily limit your ability to succeed. It just helps you. Sometimes your biggest advantage is simply your willingness to start before you feel ready. So back to my thing. So then I started posting this message in different groups, not as a spam. I was genuinely trying to help people. And slowly, people started messaging me privately. One person reached out, then another. I got my first student and something magical happened. After a few weeks of classes, she was so happy with her progress that she told her sister. And her sister told a friend, that friend told a coworker, and this is what I mean by small actions compounding into more things. One satisfied student turned into whole networks of referral. Now here's something interesting that might surprise you or not. When that first student sent me $20 for our first section, the amount wasn't what excited me. $20 wasn't going to change my life financially, but the feeling was incredible. I literally ran around the block because I was so excited, and it wasn't about the money. It was about the proof. For the first time, I had concrete evidence that I could create value for someone and they would pay me for it. I could make money with just my knowledge and a computer. And that realization was worth way more than $20. Now let's talk about how you can start your own experiment. And the key here is experiment and not business launch. We're going to test a few things, but we need to be strategic about it. The biggest mistake people make is trying to do everything at once. They want to teach English and offer fitness coaching and do social media management and sell handmade crafts. Don't do this, okay? It's a tragedy. Pick one thing to succeed more easily on this freelancing experience. It's just this experience, just one. But why? Because you need to get good at one thing before you can be good at multiple things. And more importantly, you need to understand one market before you can understand the multitude and the multiple markets. So ask yourself, what's one skill I have that other people struggle with? Maybe you are good at organization and could help people declutter their houses or offices. Maybe you understand Instagram better than your friends. Maybe you're great at explaining things and could tutor kids in math. It doesn't have to be something you went to school for. But remember, I wasn't certified an English teacher. I was just a random dude who had learned English and could help others do the same. Once you know what you want to offer, you need to craft a message to your network. And here's something important. You're going to start with people you already know, not random strangers in the internet. Why? Because your friends and family are more likely to give you honest feedback. They're more likely to give you a chance, even if your offer isn't perfect. And they're more likely to refer you to others if you do good work. Now here's a crucial mindset shift that changes everything. When you offer a service, you are not asking or begging for money. It's not charity. You're not asking people to help me, please, by giving you money. You are offering to solve a problem in exchange for payment. It's the same as any other type of transaction. When you buy coffee, you're trading that money for coffee. When someone hires you, they're trading money for the solution to their problem that you offer. This mindset shift matters because it affects how you communicate. Instead of saying, I'm trying to start a business, can you help me out? You say, I noticed you mentioned you're struggling with X and I can help you solve that with Y. But before I show you the exact messages that I used, if this approach is making sense to you, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel because that will help me out a lot. And like this video because I think it helps even more than subscribing. And I hope I can keep sharing things like this to help you on your journey. So let's go back. So let me show you the exact messages I used and more importantly, why they work. So my English teaching message was in Portuguese, but it was a little bit like this. Hey, my name is Felipe, and I know how it is to be in a country where you don't speak the language. Trust me, I know. I struggled with languages for a very long time, but something changed when I was able to speak English fluently. A lot of other doors opened for me, and I wonder if you feel like you could help you to do the same. I'd like to help you in this journey. If you'd like to learn English, my rate is just $20 an hour. There's nothing hidden, and the first class is completely free. So you can see if we are a match or not. I'm looking forward to hear from you. Much love, and I hope to hear from you soon. Now let me break down why this worked. First of all, I led with empathy. I know how it is. Shows I understand their struggle. I shared my transformation. And then when I say something changed, creates curiosity about what's possible. I made it about them. Like, I wonder if it's the same feeling for you. Shifts their focus to their potential transformation. And when I put $20 an hour, it just shows clear pricing, removes confusion, and removes that first part that people have to ask, oh, how much it costs, you know? So it just makes it very simple. Later, when I offered social media services to my personal network, I said, hey, I've been doing social media for other companies for a while right now. And for my group of friends, I'm doing a complete audit of their social media and writing a whole new strategy plan for them and how to execute. And I also said, usually I charge $1,000 for this, but just for this moment, just for this time, for my group of friends, I'm going to charge $100. This offer will expire in 24 hours. And let me say this strategy doesn't work just for me, okay? I've had clients who had struggled with getting new clients to find people to buy their service, and I asked them if they reached out to their friends yet, to their network, and most times they said no, and I helped them to craft a message just like this. It was very similar. And can you guess what happened? In 48 hours, they had new clients. This happens because sometimes we think we're asking for people to help, but we have to shift this mindset. Instead of asking for help, we need to shift to we are actually delivering a service. It's really, really important that you nail this mindset, because if you think you are begging for money, the feeling is completely different when you write a message like this, because you sound desperate, uncertain, apologetic. But when you know that you are delivering a service, or at least try to, and service needs to be paid for with money, then you suddenly understand that this is just another service and that these people are going to come across. Your confidence changes, your language changes, and people can feel that difference right away. Now, that social media message didn't get me a lot of responses, but that's okay. I had one friend to respond, and we spent 3.5 hours together. I gave everything I had, providing as much value as possible. And that one client taught me so much what worked in my approach and what needed to be improved. This brings me to something crucial. How do you handle your feedback? Once you deliver your first service, you get feedback. That's it. And here's what you need to understand. Feedback is just information. It's not a judgment of your self-worth as a person. It's not an attack on your character. It's data about how your service worked for that person. That's it, nothing more. If someone says, the session was helpful, but I wish we focused more on pronunciation, very good. That's not criticism, that's valuable information about how to improve your service or how to set better expectations up front. If someone says, I thought it would be more structured, that tells you either to be more structured next time or to better explain your teaching style up front so people know what to expect. Feedback becomes the foundation for improving your service, which allows you to charge more over time, get better results for clients, and build a stronger reputation. And here's something I think that truly a game changer. Something that changed so much about how I grew my business and myself as well. Around the second session with a new client, I started asking for feedback with something like this. Hey, I usually ask for feedback around this time because I'm always looking to improve. I want you to know that I do not take any of this feedback personally, and I see it as valuable information that helps me serve you better in the future. You can be completely honest with me about what's working and what isn't. Is there anything at all that you'd like me to adjust or do differently just to make these sessions more valuable to you? This simple approach tells your client that you genuinely value their opinion and that they can share their honest thoughts without fear of hurting your feelings or damage the relationship that you already have. It creates a psychological safety net for them to give you the real feedback you need, not just polite responses. When clients feel safe to be honest, that's when you get the gold. That's the specific insights that help you refine your service and become genuinely better at what you do. Saw myself spitting in the camera here. Here's why this experimental approach works so much better than trying to launch a full business right away. Experiments leads to data, which leads to confidence, which leads to better results. Most people try to go from zero to full business overnight, and they spend months building websites, creating course materials, developing pricing strategies, and then they launch to crickets. Why? Because they built something without testing if anyone is actually interested in it. This happens because of all of this stuff like building website, perfecting your logo, creating elaborate course materials feels like progress at the time, but it's just another fancy way of procrastinating. And this fancy way of procrastinating can and will lead to a lot of money lost and thrown down the drain. I know that because I've been there and I see a lot of people doing this over and over again, they'll spend $2,000 on a website, $500 on branding, $300 on course creation tools, and then wonder why they have no customers. So especially if you are starting without a lot of money, I would just advise you to start to find the clients first and figure out the rest later. Get someone to pay you for your service and then worry about making it look professional. But when you start small, you're constantly getting feedback from real people with real problems. You're adjusting as you go. You're building confidence with every small success. And this is the opposite of those get-rich-quick schemes that promise you to make thousands in your first month. That's not what we're trying here. Those usually fail because they skip this crucial learning phase. They make everything feel urgent and overwhelming, so when it doesn't work immediately, people feel ashamed and they give up. Your first experiment should be tiny. The goal isn't to make thousands of dollars, it's to make $1 or 20 or maybe even 100. Sometimes that feels achievable and slightly a little bit outside of your comfort zone. And that's where you want to be. Now, I know a lot of people will say, oh, $1 is very little, 20, that's not gonna change anything. And you're right, that's not going to change your financial situation. That's not the point here. Nothing's gonna change like that overnight. But here's what it does. You see that the possibility is real. Making money online isn't about getting rich quick. It's about seeing that possibilities are real, that this actually works. It's not fancy, it's not glamorous, it's just understanding and seeing what works and what doesn't work through real experience with real people. And then once you have that proof of concept, you can start getting a little bit more professional over time with your approach, or maybe you pivot to something completely different based on what you learned in this experiment. But that first dollar proves that strangers will pay you for value that you can provide. And that changes everything about how you see yourself and your potential. Why? Because every experiment needs a system. And this is what we're developing. A system that builds confidence through small wins, gathers data through real interactions with real people, and grows naturally based on what actually works. Think of it like learning to drive. You don't start on the highway right away. You start on an empty parking lot, then quiet neighborhood streets, then busier roads. Eventually, you were comfortable on the highway, but you built up to the level systematically. So in the next video, we're going to dive deeper into exactly how to structure this experiment, how to handle common objections like I don't have time or I can't afford it, and how to turn your first small success into a repeatable system that can grow as big as you want it to. But for now, your homework is simple. Think about one skill or a service that you could offer, even if it feels small or obvious to you. And remember, sometimes the most obvious thing to you is exactly what someone else desperately needs help with. Write it down. Don't overthink it. Just do the damn exercise. Because here's the thing. If you don't actually do these exercises, if you just watch these videos passively, change is not going to happen. I can give you all the frameworks in the world, but they are useless if you don't put them into practice. The people who get results from this course are the ones who pause the video, grab a piece of paper, and actually write things down. So please don't just consume this content. Engage with it. See you there. And I hope this was valuable to you. And much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.